The first explosion happened 3,000 feet above the valley. Rachel Hayes heard it through a headset. A deep metallic concussion traveled down the Black Ridge cable system, through the support towers, and into the rescue control center beneath her boots. The windows shuddered. Coffee leaped from a paper cup beside the emergency console. Every light on the northern line flashed red at once. Outside, the Colorado mountain had disappeared behind a wall of snow. Rachel's fingers moved before fear could reach them. "North line emergency, stop engaged," she said, her voice calm despite the violent vibration beneath the floor. "Cabins 12 through 17. Respond with passenger count and condition." Static filled her headset. Then 6 cabin indicators went dark. Only one remained illuminated. Cabin 14. It hung over Raven's Divide, the deepest ravine on the mountain. Rachel enlarged the camera feed. The image flickered through snow and electrical interference before revealing a black cable car suspended above darkness. The cabin swung in the storm, its windows glowing faintly against the white night. One passenger stood inside. He wore a black overcoat over a perfectly tailored suit. One hand rested against the ceiling rail. The other held the emergency radio. He looked composed, almost bored, while the cabin moved over a drop that would have terrified most men into silence. Rachel recognized him. Everyone in Colorado recognized Matteo Russo, though almost no one admitted it aloud. His photograph had never appeared on a campaign poster or corporate biography. It existed in leaked surveillance images, financial investigations that went nowhere, and whispered conversations between men who owned casinos, unions, private security companies, and half the shipping routes between Chicago and the West Coast. Rachel had seen powerful guests arrive at Black Ridge before. None had caused the resort director to close an entire mountain. Matteo lifted the radio. "Control." His voice reached her through the static deep, measured and disturbingly calm. "This is Cabin 14. I have you, Cabin 14. Identify yourself." A pause followed. He knew she recognized him. Matteo Russo. Behind Rachel, rescue technician Owen Pike stopped moving. 2 younger operators stared at her. Rachel kept her eyes on the screen. "Mr. Russo, are you injured?" "No." "Are you alone?" "Yes." "Stay away from the windows. I'm initiating auxiliary power." She entered the command. Nothing happened. A warning appeared across her monitor. "Manual override active." Someone had disabled the rescue system from inside the building. Rachel's stomach tightened. "Owen," she said quietly, "check the mechanical panel." The technician did not answer. She turned. Owen stood near the rear exit with one hand inside his jacket. There was no confusion on his face, only regret. Rachel slowly removed one side of her headset. "What did you do?" "I'm sorry." The door behind him opened. A man in a gray snow uniform stepped into the control room. Rachel had seen him twice that week, carrying resort maintenance equipment. But she knew immediately that he was not an employee. Real maintenance workers did not enter emergency centers wearing gloves too thin for the weather. The stranger locked the door. The 2 younger operators froze. Owen looked at Rachel. "They said nobody here would be hurt." The mountain shook again. On Rachel's monitor, the tension level of the main cable jumped into the red. Someone had attached an explosive charge to Tower 6. If the main line snapped naturally, Cabin 14 would fall. If rescue control transferred its weight onto the secondary system, the force would redirect through the lower station where 23 members of the rescue crew were assembling. Rachel understood the design. It was not merely an assassination. It was a choice. Kill Matteo Russo, or save him by sacrificing everyone on the ground. The stranger stepped toward her console. "Transfer the cabin." "No." His expression remained blank. "You have 30 seconds. Rachel returned both hands to the controls. Through the headset, Matteo said, "Rachel." She stopped breathing. She had never given him her name. The stranger's gaze snapped toward the radio. Matteo continued, "Do not transfer the weight." Rachel stared at his image. "How do you know who I am?" "I know the load pattern." "That wasn't my question." 23 people are beneath the secondary tower," he said. "If you engage it, the lower station collapses." The stranger pulled a weapon from his jacket. Rachel's operators gasped. "Transfer it," he ordered. Matteo's voice remained calm. "He will kill you after you do." Rachel watched the stranger move closer. "How comforting," she whispered. "I wasn't attempting comfort." Even now, Matteo sounded controlled. That frightened her more than panic would have. The cabin swung violently. The camera image broke apart, then returned. Matteo had moved to the emergency hatch in the floor. Rachel studied the schematics. "What are you doing?" ending his choice. Her gaze dropped to the emergency equipment listed inside cabin 14. A hydraulic cable cutter. No, she said. The stranger smiled. He understands. Rachel struck the alarm button beneath her desk. Nothing happened. Owen had disabled that too. She leaned toward her microphone. Matteo, listen to me. The cabin may survive another 12 minutes. We can stabilize the tower. You cannot stabilize an explosive from that room. I can send a climbing team. In this wind, I am not letting you cut yourself loose. The control room became silent. The stranger raised his weapon toward Rachel. On the screen, Matteo looked directly into the cabin camera. It felt as if he were looking through the storm, through the distance, and into her. You are not letting me? He asked. She heard something beneath the words. Not amusement. Fascination. Rachel ignored it. The emergency brake may catch you if the line falls naturally. If you cut the cable yourself, the cabin drops without resistance. How far? 80 feet to the old maintenance span. After that, 600 feet into the ravine. Then I'll aim for the span. You cannot aim a cable car. The stranger reached for the headset. Rachel pushed her chair backward, seized the hot coffee from the console, and threw it into his face. He shouted. She lunged for the manual lock button. A shot struck the console beside her. Glass and sparks exploded across the room. The younger operators dropped behind their desks. Rachel hit the lock. Steel security shutters fell between the control floor and the entrance, trapping the stranger on the far side of the room. Owen stared at her in horror. What have you done? Bought him time. Through the camera, Matteo opened the floor hatch. Rachel saw the cutter in his hand. Matteo. For the first time, his name left her mouth without formality. He looked up. You do not get to die because somebody gave me an impossible choice. No, he said. I get to choose where the damage ends. The words struck somewhere inside her. She heard the stranger pounding against the steel barrier. Owen ran toward the rear panel, trying to lift it manually. Rachel watched Matteo brace himself beside the open hatch. He hooked one arm through the safety rail. Snow poured into the cabin. You may hit the old span, she said quickly. If you do, the west wall of the cabin will take the impact. Stay on the eastern side. Protect your head. There is an abandoned rescue station, 50 yards below the span. Will you come for me? The question was too quiet, too personal. Rachel's pulse stumbled. Yes. Even knowing who I am? I don't leave people in the mountain. His eyes stayed on the camera. Neither do I. Matteo lowered the hydraulic blade around the cable. The stranger finally forced the barrier high enough to crawl beneath it. Rachel saw the weapon rise. Matteo closed the cutter. The cable snapped. Cabin 14 vanished from the screen. At the same moment, the stranger fired. Rachel threw herself to the floor as the control center erupted in smoke, shattered glass, and screaming alarms. Far above Raven's divide, the black cable car fell into the storm. And for one terrible second, there was nothing in Rachel's headset but silence. Then metal struck metal. The mountain roared. Chapter 2. The Man Who Fell. Rachel woke with blood warming the side of her face and Matteo Russo's voice in her headset. Rachel. She opened her eyes. Smoke crawled across the ceiling. The emergency lights painted the control room red. One of the younger operators was crying near the west console. But both appeared alive. Owen was gone. So was the stranger. The rear door stood open to the blizzard. Rachel. She touched her headset. I'm here. A breath moved through the static. Not relief exactly. Something more restrained. Cabin 14 impacted the maintenance span, Matteo said. Are you injured? Yes. The answer was blunt. Rachel pushed herself upright. Her knees shook, but her hands remained steady. Describe it. Shoulder. Ribs. Possibly my left leg. Can you move? I'm outside the cabin. Rachel looked at the broken camera feed. Why? Because the cabin is no longer attached to the span. Her heart dropped. Get away from it. I am trying. A grinding sound came through the radio. Rachel pictured the cable car hanging from a rusted maintenance platform, one side tilted over the ravine. She pulled up the old rescue schematics. The maintenance span had been decommissioned 12 years earlier. A narrow service bridge connected it to Station 9. An abandoned avalanche shelter built into the rock. 50 yards west, she said. There should be a steel bridge. I see it. Can you cross? With difficulty. Then don't move until I reach you. You have an armed man in your building. He left. That should concern you more. It does. She examined the storm map. Resort emergency teams were scattered across the mountain, and the main radio network had been corrupted. Whoever planned the attack had isolated the entire northern sector. Rachel opened a storage cabinet and pulled out a climbing harness, rope, medical pack, and insulated coat. One of the operators, Lena, grabbed her arm. "You can't go outside. He is less than 10 minutes before that platform gives way. He is Matteo Russo. He is a passenger in my system." Lena stared at her, as though that answer made no sense. Perhaps it did not. Rachel secured the harness around her waist. Her plus-size body had never fit the resort's narrow image of what a mountain rescuer should look like. But Rachel had carried injured skiers twice her size through snow. She trusted her strength more than she trusted anyone's assumptions. She handed Lena the auxiliary radio. "Lock the shutters after me. Contact County Rescue through the analog line. Do not trust any message from resort security unless you recognize the voice. What about Owen? If he comes back, don't open the door." Rachel stepped into the storm. The wind hit hard enough to twist her sideways. She lowered her center of gravity and followed the emergency path toward Tower 6. Snow erased the trail faster than her headlamp could find it. Above her, severed cables whipped against steel supports like black snakes. She kept Matteo's channel open. "Talk to me. I was under the impression you disliked being ordered." "I'm not ordering you. I'm keeping you conscious." "I am conscious." "Then tell me something useful. Why were you alone in that cabin?" "A meeting." "With whom?" "Men who believe my death would improve their financial positions." "That sounds like a very long way of saying enemies. Some of them were friends yesterday." His breathing changed. "Bine." Rachel accelerated. "Matteo, stay still. The platform is moving." She reached the edge of Raven's Divide and clipped her harness to the safety line. Far below, darkness opened between the mountains. Lightning illuminated the suspended cabin. It hung crooked beneath the old span, one side torn open. Matteo was on top of it, crawling toward the bridge while the entire structure swayed. Rachel's fear became anger. "I told you not to move. You also said you were coming." "I am here." He stopped. Even at a distance, she felt his attention shift toward her. Rachel crossed the narrow ridge to the maintenance tower. Ice coated every metal surface. She anchored the rope and descended toward the span. The cable car groaned. "Do not look down," she said. "I have been looking down for several minutes." "Then stop. Is this how you speak to every passenger?" "Only the ones determined to make my job impossible." She reached the span. Matteo was larger than he had appeared on camera, broad-shouldered beneath his torn black coat. Snow clung to his dark hair. Blood marked one side of his shirt, though the injury did not appear immediately life-threatening. His left leg dragged behind him. His eyes settled on Rachel. They were darker than she expected. Not cold, controlled. There was a difference. "Rachel Hayes," he said. She aimed her light into his face. "You knowing my name is becoming less charming every time. I was not trying to charm you." "Good. Stay where you are." The remaining cabin support cracked. Matteo glanced back. The steel frame separated another inch from the platform. Rachel clipped a second rope to the bridge and crawled toward him. Wind tore at her coat. The bridge bucked beneath her knees. When she reached Matteo, she secured the rescue line around his chest. His hand closed over her wrist. Rachel froze. He did not pull her closer. He simply held her with a strength that contradicted his injuries. "You came alone," he said. "I came quickly. There is a difference. I had no one I trusted." Something changed in his expression. The words mattered to him. Before Rachel could understand why, the cabin shifted. Matteo looked toward the severed support. "Move. I need to check your harness." "Rachel." The way he said her name stopped her. Not because it was loud, because it contained command without panic. He grabbed the back of her harness and threw both of them toward the bridge. The cable car dropped. Its metal shell scraped the platform, screamed against the mountain, then disappeared into Raven's Divide. The falling cabin pulled the loose span with it. Steel tore beneath Rachel. The bridge folded. Matteo wrapped one arm around her waist as the world tilted. Rachel's body slammed against his. They fell together, caught by the rope she had anchored above. Pain burned through her ribs. They hung over the ravine. Matteo's injured shoulder shook beneath her grip. "Let go of me," he said. Rachel stared at him. "Absolutely not. The rope may hold one. It will hold both. You don't know that. I tied it." A sharp metallic snap echoed above them. One anchor bolt pulled halfway from the tower. Matteo looked at it, then at Rachel. His hand moved toward the knife at his belt. She understood instantly. "Don't. If the anchor fails, it won't." "Rachel." Touch that rope, and I will personally bring you back from the dead to kill you." For the first time, Matteo Russo almost smiled. It was a small, dark movement at the corner of his mouth. "You speak to death very confidently. I work emergency dispatch. We have an understanding." Rachel tightened her legs around the rope, shifted her weight, and reached for the bridge ladder. Her muscles burned. Matteo tried to help, but his left arm failed. She pulled anyway. Inch by inch, she hauled them toward the tower wall. Matteo watched her with an intensity that felt more dangerous than the ravine. "You are stronger than they said." Rachel's grip slipped. "What did you say?" The anchor screamed. Matteo reached past her and caught the ladder with his good hand. Together, they dragged themselves onto the maintenance ledge. Rachel rolled onto the snow, breathing hard. Matteo remained on one knee beside her. His hand hovered near her face. He almost touched the cut at her temple. Then he stopped. The restraint unsettled her more than contact would have. "Who told you anything about me?" she demanded. Before he could answer, gunfire struck the tower. Metal sparked above their heads. Matteo threw himself over Rachel. His body covered hers as bullets tore into the wall. "Your saboteur followed you," he said against her ear. Rachel could feel the steady force of his heartbeat. "Can you walk?" "For you?" His voice lowered. "I'll manage." They disappeared into the storm toward the abandoned rescue station as armed men climbed the ridge behind them. Chapter 3. Station 9. Station 9 had been carved into the mountain during the 1980s, back when Blackridge still used dynamite to clear avalanche paths. Rachel forced the frozen door open with her shoulder. Matteo entered behind her and locked it with a steel bar. The station smelled of dust, rust, and old wood smoke. Emergency blankets sat in cracked plastic containers. A narrow cot rested beneath a wall map faded almost white. Rachel found a propane lantern and lit it. Warm yellow light filled the room. Matteo leaned against the wall. For the first time since she had seen him, his control slipped. Only slightly. His jaw tightened. His injured leg nearly folded. Rachel crossed the room before he could fall. "I'm fine." That is what injured men say immediately before becoming unconscious and inconvenient. She guided him toward the cot. His arm remained around her shoulders longer than necessary. Rachel noticed. So did he. Matteo released her. "Sit," she ordered. He obeyed, though his expression suggested he considered obedience a temporary experiment. Rachel removed his coat. The shirt beneath was torn at the shoulder and dark with blood. The injury looked painful but manageable. His ribs were badly bruised. His knee had swollen beneath his trousers. She opened the medical pack. "You need a hospital. I need to know who controls the lower station. You need stitches." "I have had stitches before." "I'm sure you have. That does not make infection a personality trait." His gaze remained on her face. Rachel cleaned the shoulder wound. Matteo did not react to the pain. She had treated climbers who screamed over bruised fingers. Matteo watched her, as if the only thing in the room capable of hurting him was a question he had not yet decided to answer. "How did you know my name?" she asked. "I saw the employee roster. You called me Rachel before the attacker said it. I knew you worked here." "How?" Silence. Rachel tightened the bandage more than necessary. Matteo's eyes narrowed. "That was deliberate." "Yes. You enjoy punishing people who avoid your questions?" "I enjoy clarity." "That must make this difficult." She secured the dressing and moved to his knee. "Did you arrange the attack?" "No." "Were you expecting one?" "Yes." "Did you know I would be in that room?" His answer came too slowly. Rachel looked up. "Matteo, I knew you were employed at Blackridge." The storm hammered the metal roof. Rachel sat back on her heels. "Why?" "I asked first. You nearly fell 600 feet. You don't have authority here." "I have authority everywhere. Not in my rescue station." Again, that almost smile. Then it vanished. Matteo reached inside his shirt and removed a thin black chain. A small metal key hung from it. He placed the key in Rachel's palm. The object was old, scratched and marked with the emblem of the United States Marshals Service. Rachel stopped breathing. She had seen that key once before. 7 years earlier. Denver. A locked interview room. A federal agent telling her that Rachel Hayes no longer existed. At the time, she had been Rachel Hale, 24 years old and working overnight emergency communications for a private security company. She had answered a call routed from an abandoned warehouse. The caller had whispered that men were coming. Rachel had kept him talking for 11 minutes. Then a security camera activated. On the screen, she saw Matteo Russo enter the warehouse. She saw him approach the kneeling caller. She heard him say, "Do it." Then came a gunshot. The caller fell. Hours later, federal agents arrived at Rachel's apartment. They told her she had witnessed the execution of Adrian Cade, a government informant whose testimony could destroy the Russo organization. They moved her before sunrise. The key Matteo had just placed in her hand had belonged to the marshal who escorted her away. Rachel stood quickly. Her shoulders struck the edge of the cot. Where did you get this? From the man who was supposed to protect you. Marshal Grant? Corrupt. He saved my life. He sold your location 3 times. The room tilted. Rachel closed around the key until the metal cut into her palm. You're lying. Your first relocation was outside Portland. A vehicle followed you from the airport. My men stopped it. She remembered a road closure that night. Your second apartment was in Milwaukee, Matteo continued. Someone entered the building using a fire inspection code. The code was revoked before they reached your floor. She remembered waking to alarms. 4 years ago, you worked at a ski lodge in Vermont. A guest registered beneath the name Michael Trent. Rachel remembered him too. A quiet man who had asked too many questions about her schedule. He disappeared, she whispered. Yes. What did you do to him? Matteo's face became unreadable. You do not want that answer. Fear moved through her. Not because she doubted he had killed for her. Because she believed him. Rachel stepped away. You have been watching me. I have been watching threats against you. That is not a difference. It is to me. You do not get to decide what it is to me. Matteo rose despite his injured knee. The station seemed smaller when he stood. I did not enter your home. I did not contact you. I did not interfere with your choices. You knew where I lived. Yes. Where I worked. Yes. Who I spoke to? His silence answered. Rachel's heartbeat became painfully loud. Why? Matteo looked at her for a long moment. Because Adrian Cade did not die in that warehouse. The storm became distant. Rachel stared at him. I watched you shoot him. You watched a staged execution. The blood, prepared. The body, removed before federal teams arrived. Why would you protect an informant? I wasn't protecting Cade. His voice hardened. I was following him. Matteo moved toward the wall map. Cade was never truly working for the government. He built a network that sold federal protection to criminal families. Witness identities, safe house locations, sealed evidence. Your call interrupted a transfer he had arranged. Rachel tried to understand. You knew I heard him. Cade knew too. And you put me into witness protection? I forced Grant to move you before Cade's men reached your apartment. The key felt cold in her hand. If you staged Cade's death, where is he? Matteo met her eyes. That is what I came to Blackridge to discover. A heavy impact struck the outer door. Both turned. Someone was trying the handle. Matteo extinguished the lantern. Darkness swallowed the station. Rachel heard the quiet movement of his clothing as he positioned himself between her and the entrance. Another impact. Then a familiar voice called through the storm. Rachel? She recognized it. Elias Voss, director of Blackridge Mountain Resort. The polished man who approved her promotion. The man who had personally welcomed Matteo's delegation that afternoon. Rachel, are you inside? Matteo's hand closed around hers in the darkness. Do not answer, he whispered. She felt the warmth of his breath near her temple. Outside, Elias tried the door again. We're searching for survivors. Matteo Russo is dangerous. If he is with you, step away from him. Rachel's gaze found Matteo's outline. His grip did not tighten. He did not order her to stay. He waited for her choice. Elias spoke again. Rachel, I know who you were before Blackridge. Her blood went cold. Matteo moved closer. Outside, Elias Voss said the name she had buried 7 years ago. Rachel Hale. Then he began to laugh. Chapter 4. The dead man at the door. Matteo pulled Rachel behind the stone partition seconds before the door exploded inward. Snow and splintered metal filled the station. 3 men entered wearing resort rescue uniforms. Elias remained outside. Matteo moved without hesitation. The first attacker crossed the threshold and lost his weapon before he understood Matteo had reached him. Matteo struck once, efficiently, then drove the man into the wall. Rachel grabbed a flare launcher from the emergency shelf. The second man turned toward her. She fired. The flare struck the ceiling above him, erupting in blinding red light. He stumbled back. Rachel slammed the steel medical case into his arm and kicked the weapon beneath the cot. The third attacker reached for her. Matteo appeared between them. His calm vanished. Not into chaos. Into something far more frightening. Every movement became precise and merciless. Within seconds, the attacker was on the floor. gasping, while Matteo stood over him with blood running through the bandage Rachel had just tied. "Enough," Rachel said. Matteo looked at her. For one suspended moment, she was uncertain he could hear. Then he stepped back. She had stopped him with one word. The realization disturbed them both. Elias's voice came from outside. "You always did have a weakness for witnesses, Matteo." Matteo retrieved one of the fallen weapons and moved toward the ruined doorway. "Stay behind me." Rachel lifted the flare launcher. "You can stop saying that. Then stop standing where people can shoot you. I work in emergency response. That is frequently where people need me." He turned his head just enough to look at her. "This is not a rescue call. Everything is a rescue call to someone." Something in Matteo's face shifted. A wound deeper than the one in his shoulder. Outside, the storm briefly cleared. Elias stood 20 yards from the station beneath the white beam of a snow vehicle. He wore a charcoal coat, black gloves, and the same composed expression he carried through resort board meetings. 2 armed men flanked him. Rachel stepped beside Matteo. Elias smiled. "You should have stayed in Milwaukee, Rachel." She stared at him. The shape of his jaw was different. His hair had silvered. His nose had been surgically altered. But the voice, 7 years earlier, she had listened to Adrian Cade whisper into a warehouse phone while men searched for him. She had listened to him beg her not to disconnect. "Adrian," she said. His smile widened. "Now you remember." Rachel's stomach turned. "You were alive. Thanks to Matteo." She looked at the man beside her. Matteo's attention never left Elias. "I allowed him to believe he escaped," Matteo said. "I needed him to lead me to the federal network." "And did I?" Elias asked. "You led me here. To your grave." A shot tore through the doorway. Matteo pushed Rachel down as stone fragments exploded above them. They retreated through the rear emergency tunnel. Station 9 connected to an old avalanche bunker lower on the ridge. Rachel led the way through darkness, while Matteo sealed the inner door behind them. The tunnel descended sharply. "County Rescue will search the station," Rachel said. "They control county dispatch frequencies." "How many people are involved?" "Enough." "That is not an answer. It is the only one I have." They reached a rusted maintenance shaft. Rachel pulled the release lever. Nothing moved. Matteo joined her, placing his uninjured hand over hers. His chest pressed against her back as they forced the mechanism down together. The closeness became its own kind of danger. Rachel felt the heat of him through layers of clothing. His breath touched the curve of her neck. His body remained careful, though his hand could have easily enclosed hers. The hatch opened. Neither moved immediately. Matteo's voice was low near her ear. "When we reach the lower trail, you will go to my vehicle." "No. Rachel, I'm not climbing into a mafia convoy because you told me to. Cade knows your identity. He has known it for years. Now he no longer needs to hide that knowledge." She turned. They stood so close that the front of her coat brushed his shirt. "You watched my life without telling me. He watched it because he wanted to kill me. Forgive me if the distinction does not make either of you trustworthy." "I am not asking for trust." "What are you asking for?" "Time." "To do what?" "To make certain you live long enough to hate me properly." The answer landed unexpectedly. Rachel searched his face. Beneath the power, the control, and the reputation, there was exhaustion. Not physical. Something older. "You really believe everyone eventually hates you," she said. "Most people are intelligent enough to begin there. And the others? They usually die before reconsidering." Rachel should have stepped away. Instead, she noticed the blood spreading through his bandage. "You're bleeding again. It will stop." "That is not how blood works." She opened the medical pack, but Matteo caught her wrist. His thumb rested against her pulse. "You need to understand something," he said. "Cade did not choose Blackridge randomly. Someone inside my organization told him I was coming. Someone also told him about you." "Who knew?" "3 people." "You trust them?" "I did." The past tense carried more threat than shouting would have. Rachel removed her wrist from his hand. "Then we find out which one betrayed you." Matteo studied her. "You are offering to help?" "I am offering to survive." Those are not always different. They descended through the shaft and emerged onto a lower service road. Headlights appeared through the snow. 3 black SUVs moved toward them. Rachel raised the flare launcher. Matteo lowered it. The vehicles stopped in a protective formation. Doors opened. Men in dark coats stepped into the storm. Every one of them looked toward Matteo with visible relief, then toward Rachel with open surprise. A tall woman emerged from the center SUV. She wore a white winter coat over a black dress, her dark hair pinned with perfect elegance, despite the storm. Matteo. She crossed the snow and touched his face. Rachel went still. The woman looked at the blood on his shirt, then at Rachel. Her gaze moved slowly over Rachel's torn rescue uniform, curving figure and bruised face. Who is she? Matteo did not hesitate. The reason I am alive. His men became silent. The woman's expression tightened. Matteo turned to Rachel and held out his hand. Come with me. The snow fell between them. Rachel looked at his open hand, then at the armed convoy, then at the beautiful woman standing beside him as if she had always belonged there. Who is she? Rachel asked. The woman answered first. Sofia De Luca. Her eyes remained fixed on Rachel. The woman Matteo is expected to marry. Chapter 5. The House Above the Clouds. Rachel did not take Matteo's hand. She climbed into the SUV by herself. The distinction mattered to her, even if no one else understood it. Matteo sat across from her in the armored cabin. Sofia took the seat beside him. Two of his men occupied the front. Blackridge disappeared behind them as the convoy descended through snow-covered pines. Sofia removed a medical kit from beneath the seat. I can replace his bandage. Rachel already did, Matteo said. The words were simple. Sofia heard what lay beneath them. So did Rachel. I am sitting directly here, Rachel said. Matteo's gaze shifted toward her. I'm aware. Then perhaps the two of you can postpone whatever territorial conversation is happening. Sofia looked almost amused. Matteo does not explain his arrangements to strangers. I'm not asking him to. You asked who I was. I wanted to understand why someone dressed for a ballroom was standing on a mountain during an assassination attempt. Sofia's mouth curved. Matteo watched Rachel with that same unsettling fascination. The convoy turned from the public road and climbed toward a private estate built into the mountainside. The house appeared through the storm like something carved from darkness and glass. Warm light glowed behind immense windows. Security vehicles lined the entrance. Inside, men lowered their voices when Matteo passed. Rachel noticed it immediately. The fear was not theatrical. No one rushed him or asked unnecessary questions. They watched his hands, his face, the angle of his shoulders. Matteo Russo did not need to demand authority. The room rearranged itself around him. A doctor approached. Matteo pointed toward Rachel. Her first. I have a minor cut. Her first. The doctor looked at Matteo's blood-soaked shirt and wisely obeyed. Rachel sat in a private library while the cut at her temple was cleaned. She refused pain medication and asked 3 times whether County Rescue had reached the control center. No one gave her an answer. When the doctor finished, Matteo entered wearing a fresh black shirt. His shoulder was stitched, his knee braced, and his expression restored to perfect control. Sofia followed. We have confirmation, she said. 2 Blackridge employees are dead. The junior operators survived. Owen Pike is missing. Rachel closed her eyes briefly. Owen had worked beside her for 2 years. He had a wife and a baby daughter. Whatever he had done, she could still see him bringing photographs into the break room. Matteo noticed. He made a choice, he said. That does not erase his family. No. You won't hurt them? If they are uninvolved, they will not be touched. Rachel met his eyes. Promise me. Sofia looked sharply at her. No one asked Matteo Russo for promises. Matteo answered without looking away. They will be protected. The tension in Rachel's chest eased slightly. Sofia moved toward a table displaying digital maps. The attack was coordinated through the resort's emergency network. Elias Voss emptied 3 accounts 20 minutes before the explosion. His vehicles are moving east. He wants us to follow, Matteo said. Obviously. Then we don't. Sofia glanced at Rachel. We also found something else. She activated a screen. A photograph appeared. Rachel leaving a grocery store in Milwaukee 4 years earlier. Then another. Rachel at a bus stop in Vermont. Another showed her entering Blackridge on her first day of work. Her body went cold. Dozens of photographs filled the screen. Some had been taken from a distance. Others were too close. Rachel moved toward them. Where did these come from? A server recovered from the resort, Sofia said. Cade's archive. Matteo's face hardened. Rachel studied the images. In one, she was laughing with a coworker, outside a Vermont lodge. In another, she carried groceries, through rain. There was nothing intimate, but the collection transformed ordinary moments into violations. Then she saw the file labels. Some were marked Cade, others were marked Russo Security. Rachel turned. You had your own archive. Matteo did not deny it. How many photographs? Not photographs. What? Threat reports, names, vehicles, financial changes near your locations. You kept a file on me. Yes. How long? 7 years. The honesty felt like another betrayal. Rachel walked away from the screen. You could have told me. And said what? That the man you believed was a murderer had arranged your protection? You could have given me the truth. I did not have all of it. You had enough to know my life was not mine. Matteo stepped toward her. I kept distance because contact would expose you. Distance? Her voice shook. You knew every city I lived in. I knew every person trying to reach you. And did you decide who I was allowed to meet? No. Did you scare people away? His silence lasted half a second too long. Rachel laughed once, without humor. Who? A man in Vermont. Her mind immediately found the memory. Daniel Price, a visiting architect who had asked her to dinner 3 times. After their second date, he had abruptly left town. What did you do? He was married. That was my mistake to discover. He had also accepted money to photograph your apartment key. The anger inside her changed shape. You should have told me. I had no safe way. You always have a reason. Yes. Do you ever have regret? The room became still. Matteo looked at her. Constantly. The word was almost too quiet to hear. Rachel's anger faltered. Sophia watched him with an expression Rachel could not understand. Matteo turned toward the window. Your suite is on the 3rd floor. 2 guards will remain outside. I don't want guards. Cade has your identity. You keep saying that as if it gives you ownership. His shoulders became rigid. I have never claimed ownership of you. You decide where I sleep, who stands outside my door, what information I'm allowed to know. I am trying to keep you alive, and I am telling you that survival without choice is another kind of cage. Matteo faced her. Something dangerous moved behind his control. Not anger at being challenged. Fear. You want me to leave you unprotected? I want you to ask. Silence stretched between them. Sophia looked away first. Matteo's voice lowered. Will you stay here tonight while we determine Cade's next move? Rachel had not expected him to do it. The question sounded unnatural in his mouth, as if each word had to pass through years of command. She nodded once. Tonight. His expression did not soften, but something in the room did. Later, unable to sleep, Rachel left her suite and followed the sound of voices to the lower gallery. She stopped before entering. Sophia stood beside Matteo near the fireplace. You cannot dismantle the DeLuca agreement over a woman you met tonight, Sophia said. I met her 7 years ago. You heard her voice through a security recording. She stayed on the line while Cade threatened to find her. That is not love. No. Matteo's answer came after a pause. It was a debt. And now? Rachel held her breath. Matteo stared into the fire. Now it is becoming something I cannot afford. Rachel stepped backward before either of them saw her. She returned to her room and locked the door. For the first time since the cable car fell, she was not certain whether she feared Matteo's enemies more than she feared becoming important to him. Chapter 6. The Price of Protection. By morning, the snowstorm had trapped every road leading from Matteo's estate. Rachel found him in the glass-walled war room overlooking the valley. He stood at the end of a long table while 6 men reported on bank accounts, vehicles, and missing members of his organization. Sophia sat nearby, reading from a tablet. No one questioned why Rachel entered. Matteo noticed her immediately. His attention followed her as she crossed the room. We recovered a transmission from Owen Pike, Sophia said. He was paid through a shell company controlled by Victor Armano. Rachel recognized the name from the news. Armano controlled casinos in Nevada and private freight routes across the Southwest. He and Matteo had supposedly negotiated peace the previous year. Another friend from yesterday? Rachel asked. Matteo's mouth hardened. Apparently. Sophia displayed a photograph of Owen entering a storage facility. He is alive. Armano's men moved him to Denver. Rachel looked at Matteo. His family? Already relocated. You kept your promise. I said I would. There was no demand for gratitude. That mattered more than Rachel wanted it to. A security guard entered and whispered to Sophia. She frowned. Federal agents are at the lower gate. Matteo remained still. For Rachel? For both of you. The Black Ridge attack is already national news. A screen activated across the room. Television footage showed the shattered cable system and rescue teams moving through the storm. Then came a blurry image of Matteo carrying Rachel from the lower service road into the convoy. The headline beneath it read, Mafia Kingpin survives resort attack with mystery woman. Another channel described Rachel as a possible member of Matteo's organization. Her photograph appeared beside old images of him entering federal court. They know my name, Rachel whispered. They know Rachel Hayes, Sophia said, not Hale. For now. The report changed. A former Blackridge employee claimed Rachel had secretly given Matteo access to restricted cable routes. That's a lie. Of course it is, Matteo said. Rachel turned toward him. People will believe it. Not after today. What happens today? Every network broadcasting the accusation will receive evidence proving the access codes came from Elias Voss. You have that evidence? No. Then what are you sending? The truth they can verify. Rachel stepped closer. You cannot threaten journalists into changing the story. I can. You will not. The room went silent. Matteo's men avoided looking at him. Rachel did not. If you silence everyone who says something you dislike, you make the accusation believable. They are placing you in danger. They are making me angry. Those are not the same thing. To me, they are becoming remarkably similar. The possessiveness in his voice sent warmth through her before reason could stop it. Rachel hated that response. She folded her arms. Then control yourself. Matteo's gaze moved over her face. You have no idea how much control I am using. No one spoke. Sophia slowly stood. We should meet the federal agents. The agents waiting at the gate belonged to a special organized crime unit. Their leader, Agent Claire Monroe, requested Rachel's cooperation and offered immediate relocation. You were involved in an attack against a protected witness, Claire told Matteo through the security barrier. She stopped being protected when your agency sold her identity. That accusation is convenient. I have names. Then provide them. When I am certain you are not one. Claire's attention shifted to Rachel. You do not have to remain here. Rachel looked toward the convoy waiting behind the agents. 7 years earlier, federal officers had arrived with the same promise. Come with us. We will keep you safe. Then her locations had been sold again and again. Can you explain how Elias Voss learned my former identity? Rachel asked. Claire hesitated. We are investigating. Do you know who Adrian Cade was? Another hesitation. Matteo watched closely. Claire lowered her voice. Cade died 7 years ago. No, Rachel said. He runs Blackridge. The agent's expression changed. It was small but unmistakable. Recognition. Matteo moved forward. You knew. Claire reached for her radio. Matteo's guards raised their weapons. Rachel stepped between them. Stop. Matteo looked at her with fury contained beneath perfect stillness. She lied to you. I know. She may be involved. Then we question her. She came with 12 armed agents. And you have 30 armed men. 28. This is not the time for accuracy. Claire exhaled slowly. I did not know Cade was alive. I knew there were rumors that the witness protection breach involved someone from the Denver operation. Marshal Grant, Matteo said. He disappeared 2 years ago. Dead, Sophia replied. Claire looked at Rachel. If Cade survived, he may have access to the continuity archive. What is that? A sealed database containing original identities for relocated witnesses. Rachel felt the ground shift beneath her again. How many? Hundreds. Matteo's expression became lethal. Cade did not merely want Rachel dead. He possessed a weapon capable of exposing every protected witness connected to corrupt cases. Claire continued. The archive was designed with a physical authorization key. It cannot be copied remotely. The key from Station 9? Rachel asked. Matteo's gaze dropped to the metal object, still hanging from a cord around her neck. Claire became pale. Where did you get that? Matteo. Every federal agent reached for a weapon. Matteo's men responded. Rachel stood between two armies. No one moves, she said. The wind swept through the open gate. Claire stared at the key. That was Marshal Grant's. He was one of 3 custodians. Matteo looked toward Sophia. Cade needs Rachel and the key. To access the archive, Sophia said. Rachel touched the metal. Why me? Claire answered. Because your voice is the biometric lock. The warehouse call. Rachel had stayed on the line while Adrian Cade fled through the building. Federal technicians had later asked her to repeat several phrases for evidence authentication. They had not been collecting evidence. They had been creating a key. Matteo stepped toward her. You will come inside. Rachel looked at him. Ask. His jaw tightened. Behind them waited agents, soldiers, snow, and a world suddenly full of people who needed something from her. Matteo extended his hand. Will you come inside with me? Rachel placed her hand in his. Not because she surrendered. Because for the first time, The most powerful man present had given her a choice. Chapter 7. The Woman in the Red Dress. The continuity archive was hidden beneath Blackridge's Grand Summit Hotel. Elias had built the resort around it. The revelation came from recovered blueprints and federal files Claire provided under Matteo's supervision. The underground vault had once been a Cold War communications bunker. During Blackridge's construction, Elias converted it into a private data center connected to the mountain's emergency systems. There was only one way inside: the annual Winter Sovereign Gala. 200 political donors, corporate executives, and members of several criminal families were scheduled to attend the event in 48 hours. Canceling it would warn Elias that they knew the vault's location. Matteo wanted to remove Rachel from Colorado. Rachel refused. "The archive uses my voice. Claire can recreate the sequence. She said the biometric lock detects recordings. We will find another method. While Elias exposes hundreds of witnesses, I will not place you inside a building he controls." Rachel stood across from him in the estate library. "You do not get to place me anywhere." His hands rested on the desk. Every muscle in his body looked controlled by force. "You were almost killed 12 hours ago. So were you. That is different." "Why?" "Because my death is expected." The answer silenced her. Matteo looked away first. Rachel walked around the desk. "No," she said quietly, "it is not." His gaze returned. "Your life is not worth less because people have tried to take it before. You do not know what my life costs. Then tell me." For a moment, she thought he might. Instead, he turned toward the window. "My father built the Russo organization by teaching me that attachment was an invitation. My mother tried to leave with my younger brother. Their vehicle exploded before reaching the state line." Rachel's anger softened. "I'm sorry. Do not be. Sympathy changes nothing. Maybe it changes the person receiving it. I survived without it. That does not mean you should have." Matteo's eyes closed briefly. When he opened them, the control had returned. "You will remain here during the gala." "No. Rachel, if Elias needs me, he will keep coming until he has me. We can choose the place, or wait for another cable car. I will not use you as bait." "I am not bait. I am the person who can open the vault. And if he takes you, then you rescue me." The words left her before she considered them. The room changed. Matteo stepped closer. "Do not say that casually." "I wasn't. You should never trust a man like me with a promise that large. You cut a cable beneath your own feet to save people you had never met." "To save you." The admission was immediate. Rachel's breath caught. Matteo seemed to realize what he had revealed. He moved past her, putting distance between them. But the truth remained. He had known her identity before the fall. He had chosen her before they met face to face. "Why?" she asked. He did not answer. Rachel approached him. "Matteo, I heard your voice 7 years ago." His words were directed toward the dark window. Cade had activated the warehouse security system. "I listened from another room while you kept him on the emergency line. You knew someone was searching for him, but you refused to disconnect. That was my job. He threatened you. He was terrified. You told him fear did not give him permission to become cruel." Rachel remembered. She had forgotten the exact words until now. Matteo turned. "No one had spoken to me like that either. You weren't on the call. I was listening. Is that why you protected me?" "At first. And afterward?" His gaze dropped to her mouth before returning to her eyes. "Afterward it became habit." "That is not the truth." "No." The space between them narrowed. Rachel could feel the heat of him. Matteo raised one hand. His fingers stopped beside her cheek. That same hesitation from Station 9. He wanted to touch her. He refused to do it without permission. Rachel turned her face slightly into his palm. The contact was almost unbearably gentle. His hand covered the curve of her cheek. His thumb brushed beneath the healing cut at her temple. The feared man who had ordered rooms into silence touched her as if she were the one thing capable of breaking him. Rachel's lips parted. Matteo leaned closer. Then the library door opened. Sophia stood there. Her gaze moved from Matteo's hand to Rachel's face. "The gala security team is ready." Matteo stepped back. The interrupted moment left Rachel cold. Sophia waited until he left before approaching her. "You believe I am jealous," Sophia said. Rachel folded her arms. "Are you?" "No." The answer surprised her. "The marriage arrangement is political. Matteo never agreed to it. You introduced yourself as the woman he was expected to marry. I wanted to see how he reacted." "And?" He looked at you. Sophia opened a garment box on the table. Inside lay a deep red evening dress, elegant and structured. designed to celebrate rather than conceal Rachel's curves. "This is for the gala." Rachel touched the fabric. "Matteo chose it?" "I did." "Why?" "Because men like Elias underestimate women they consider decorative. Men like Matteo underestimate women they consider precious." Rachel looked at her. "And what do you underestimate?" Sophia smiled faintly. "Nothing twice." At the Winter Sovereign Gala, Rachel entered Blackridge Grand Summit on Matteo's arm. The room fell silent. Not because of her size. Because Matteo Russo had never publicly arrived with a woman. Rachel's red dress moved like dark flame beneath crystal chandeliers. Her shoulders were bare. Her body was soft, full, and powerful. And she refused to shrink beneath the attention. Matteo wore black. His hand rested at the small of her back, possessive enough to warn the room and restrained enough to remain a question. Men who had ignored Rachel in her dispatcher uniform now watched her cross the ballroom. Elias Voss appeared at the grand staircase. He smiled as though welcoming honored guests. "Rachel." Matteo's hand became still against her back. Elias descended. "You look remarkably like yourself. I'm beginning to understand that you never knew me at all." His smile tightened. "You kept me alive on that call. I would have done it for anyone. And Matteo has spent 7 years pretending his interest was gratitude." Rachel glanced toward Matteo. His face revealed nothing. Elias raised a champagne glass. "To survival." The chandeliers went dark. Steel shutters crashed over every exit. The music stopped, and from hidden speakers throughout the ballroom, Rachel heard her own voice from 7 years earlier. "Stay with me. Do not disconnect." Guests began to panic. Elias's voice followed through the darkness. "Open the archive, Rachel, or everyone on this mountain learns what Matteo Russo does to the people he claims to protect." Chapter 8. The Ballroom Beneath the Snow. Emergency lights flooded the ballroom in crimson. Armed men appeared on the balconies. Some wore resort security uniforms. Others stood among the guests in tailored suits. They had entered as donors, executives, and political aides. Elias had built an army inside the gala. Matteo moved Rachel behind him. She caught his arm. "Do not start a war in a locked room." "He already did. Then we end it without killing 200 people." Elias stood above them on the staircase. "Matteo, place your weapon on the floor." Matteo did not move. A spotlight illuminated Sophia near the opposite side of the ballroom. 2 men held her at the railing. Another light revealed Agent Claire Monroe and 3 federal officers kneeling beside the stage. Elias controlled every exit. Rachel saw the design. He wanted Matteo to choose publicly. His allies or her. Power or attachment. Matteo slowly removed the weapon beneath his jacket and placed it on the marble floor. The entire room reacted. Men who had watched him command cities now watched him disarm for a dispatcher. Elias smiled. "There it is." Matteo's face remained calm. "What?" "The weakness." Rachel stepped out from behind him. "No." Matteo's hand caught hers. She looked at him. "If I stay behind you, he controls what you see." "Rachel." "Trust me." The word moved through him like a wound. His grip loosened. She walked into the center of the ballroom. Elias watched with interest. "You need my voice," she said. "And the key. You could have taken both at the rescue station." Matteo complicated the timing. He cut himself loose. "For you." Rachel did not look back. "I know." The certainty in her answer made the ballroom silent again. Elias's expression sharpened. "You believe that makes you powerful?" "No. I was powerful before he arrived." Behind her, she felt Matteo's attention like heat. Rachel continued. "You built Blackridge around an emergency network. Every door, cable, alarm, and ventilation shaft connects to the same control system." Elias's smile faded. "I designed that system," she said. "Your people only corrupted the digital controls." She lifted the bracelet Sophia had given her before the gala. A tiny analog transmitter was hidden beneath the clasp. "At Station 9, you forgot something important. Old rescue systems don't trust computers." Rachel pressed the transmitter. Somewhere beneath the hotel, a mechanical alarm began to ring. Not electronic. A rotating brass bell connected directly to the avalanche release network. The sound traveled through the walls. Then every fire door in the ballroom opened simultaneously. Matteo moved. His men entered through the service corridors. The room erupted. Guests dropped behind tables as rival soldiers exchanged fire above the chandeliers. Matteo reached Rachel and shielded her with his body, moving them toward the staircase. Elias disappeared through a hidden door. "He's going to the vault," Rachel said. Matteo signaled to Sophia's guards. Within seconds, Sophia was free. Matteo grabbed Rachel's hand. You are leaving. The archive. Claire will handle it. Claire cannot open it. I will destroy the mountain before giving him access. You cannot destroy hundreds of witness identities. I can if it keeps yours out of his hands. Rachel stopped. The ballroom moved around them in fragments of red light and shattered glass. You would sacrifice all of them for me? Yes. No hesitation. No shame. The answer should have frightened her. Instead, it broke her heart. That is not protection, she said. That is fear. Matteo stared at her. You think I do not know that? The control in his face fractured. Only for a second. But Rachel saw what lay beneath it. 7 years of waiting for someone to reach her. 7 years of knowing a single mistake could kill her. Matteo Russo was not afraid of death. He was terrified of surviving hers. Rachel took his face between her hands. You do not get to become the monster they expect because you are afraid to lose me. His breath stopped. Then tell me what to become. The words were almost a confession. Rachel held his gaze. The man who trusts me. An explosion shook the hotel. The floor tilted. A message flashed across the emergency panels. North Cable System released. Rachel looked toward the mountain map. Elias had activated every occupied cable car during the storm. Dozens of gala staff and security teams were trapped above Raven's Divide. He's forcing the rescue system to choose again, she said. Matteo's expression hardened. Rachel pulled him toward the service elevator. Where are you going? Sophia demanded. To the control center. The lower corridors are compromised. Rachel looked at Matteo. Then we use the old line. They descended through a maintenance shaft beneath the ballroom. Water from melted snow ran along the concrete stairs. Emergency sirens echoed below. At the vault level, Agent Claire joined them with 2 officers. The corridor ended at a circular steel door. A voice recognition panel glowed beside it. Elias stood before the door with Owen Pike. Owen looked exhausted and terrified. A device was strapped to his chest. Rachel stopped. Owen. His eyes filled with shame. They have my wife. Matteo moved forward. Elias raised a switch. One more step, and Owen becomes a very brief memory. Rachel caught Matteo's arm. Elias held out his hand. The key. Rachel removed the metal key from her necklace. Matteo looked at her. No. She is not asking you, Elias said. Rachel stepped toward the vault. Matteo's hand closed around her elbow. She turned. His eyes were dark with restrained panic. If you enter that room, I may not reach you. Then trust me to reach myself. You ask for impossible things. You cut a cable car loose. That was easier. Rachel almost smiled. Then she placed her palm against his chest. Beneath the black suit, his heart struck hard against her hand. I am coming back. Matteo lowered his forehead to hers. The gesture was intimate enough to silence the violence around them. You do not make promises lightly, he said. Neither do you. His hand moved to the back of her neck. He did not kiss her. Not yet. He stepped away. Rachel crossed the corridor alone and placed the key into Elias's hand. The vault opened to the sound of her voice. Chapter 9. The Archive of Ghosts. The continuity archive was colder than the mountain outside. Rows of black servers extended beneath white lights. Metal cabinets lined the walls, each containing the original identity of a person who had believed the government could erase them safely. Elias entered behind Rachel. Owen remained at the door. Matteo, Claire, and Sophia were forced to stay beyond the security field. The vault sealed. Elias approached the central console. You have no idea what this is worth. People's lives are not currency. Everything becomes currency when the right person is desperate. He inserted the key. The screen requested a spoken authorization phrase. Rachel recognized it. The same sentence she had used during the warehouse call. Fear does not give you permission to become cruel. Elias smiled. You remember. I remember believing you were worth saving. His expression chilled. Say it. Rachel studied the console. Blackridge's emergency network appeared in a secondary window. Cable cars moved along the northern line despite the storm. Tower 6 showed structural failure. There were 41 people trapped above the ravine. You want the archive, she said. Release the cable controls. After authorization. You don't need hostages anymore. I need Matteo predictable. He isn't. He is where you are concerned. Rachel looked through the glass barrier. Matteo stood motionless in the corridor. His control had returned, but she could see his hand flexing at his side. Elias followed her gaze. He has killed men for looking at things he believed belonged to him. I don't belong to him. Not yet. Not ever. Elias laughed softly. You misunderstand men like Matteo. They do not love. They absorb. They consume. He watched you for 7 years and called it protection. And you watched me because you were afraid. His smile disappeared. Rachel continued. You built an entire mountain around the possibility that I might remember your voice. I built an empire. You built a bunker. He struck her. The impact turned her face sideways. Beyond the glass, Matteo moved. Claire and Sophia grabbed him before he reached the field. Rachel tasted blood. She straightened. Matteo's expression changed. The men around him stepped back instinctively. Elias saw it too. There, he whispered. That is what you made him. Rachel looked at Matteo. No, she said. That is what he chooses next. She turned toward the console. Fear does not give you permission to become cruel. The archive unlocked. Thousands of identity files appeared across the screens. Elias exhaled. Finally, he reached for the transfer command. Rachel pressed the analog transmitter inside her bracelet. Nothing happened. Elias smiled. Did you think I wouldn't search for another signal? He crushed the bracelet beneath his shoe. Then the server alarms began. Rachel looked toward the ceiling. The transmitter had not been designed to send a radio signal. It had heated a thin strip of emergency wax beneath the bracelet, melting it into the fire sensor beside the console when she placed her hand there. The archive's suppression system activated. Steel shutters sealed every server row. The central console locked. Elias lunged toward Rachel. She struck the manual release lever. The vault doors opened. Matteo crossed the threshold before the security field fully collapsed. He hit Elias with enough force to send both men into the console. Owen stumbled backward. The device on his chest began beeping. Rachel ran to him. Do not touch it, he gasped. She examined the wiring. It was connected to the cable network. If the device lost signal, Tower 6 would release. Matteo and Elias fought between the server rows. There was nothing elegant about it now. Elias had spent 7 years preparing to kill him. Matteo had spent 7 years containing what he wanted to do in return. Rachel focused on Owen. Where's your wife? Denver, Armano's warehouse. Sophia heard him and immediately made a call. We will get her, she said. Owen shook his head. You don't know where. I know every warehouse Armano owns. Matteo drove Elias against the steel cabinets. Elias reached for a fallen weapon. Rachel saw it. Matteo. He turned. The warning gave Elias time to fire. Matteo moved sideways, but the shot struck his ribs. He fell against the console. Rachel's world narrowed. She left Owen and ran. Elias aimed again. Rachel pulled the emergency foam release. White suppressant exploded across the vault. Elias lost sight of Matteo. Rachel reached him through the freezing cloud. Blood spread beneath his hand. No. Matteo looked at her. Not Fatale. You don't know that. I've been shot before. That remains the least useful thing you say. His hand closed around hers. Elias appeared through the foam. Matteo pushed Rachel behind the server bank and rose. He moved with one hand pressed against his side. Elias laughed. You will die for a dispatcher. Matteo's gaze became completely still. No. He looked toward Rachel. I lived because of her. The words entered the room like a vow. Elias fired. The weapon clicked empty. Matteo crossed the distance between them. He could have killed him. Rachel saw it in the way Elias's confidence finally broke. Matteo's hand closed around his throat. One movement would end everything. Matteo, Rachel said. He did not look at her. Elias smiled despite the pressure. She commands you now. Rachel stepped closer. No, he commands himself. Matteo's grip remained. The muscles in his arms shook. Then he released Elias. Agent Claire entered and forced him to the floor. Elias stared up in disbelief. Matteo stood over him, breathing hard. You should have killed me, Elias said. I wanted to. Matteo looked at Rachel. I chose something else. The cable alarm changed. Owen cried out. Tower 6. The device on his chest displayed 60 seconds. Rachel ran to the console. The system showed 41 trapped passengers moving toward the damaged span. The only way to stop the line was from the exterior tower platform. Manual brake, she said. Someone has to reach Tower 6. Matteo looked toward the service map. There is an express cable from the roof. It crosses Raven's Divide. So did the last one. You're injured. So are you. I'm going. No. Rachel turned on him. We are not doing this again. I will not watch another cabin fall with you inside it. And I will not sit safely while other people die. Their eyes locked. Then Matteo did the thing no one in the room expected. He nodded. We go together. Chapter 10. The Last Cable. The express rescue cabin launched from the roof with Rachel and Matteo inside. Snow consumed the windows. Below them, the Grand Summit Hotel glowed red through the storm as security teams evacuated the ballroom. Farther north, a chain of occupied cable cars moved toward the broken tower. Rachel sat at the emergency controls. Matteo stood beside her, one hand braced against the wall, blood darkening his shirt. "You should sit. If I sit, you will attempt to leave without me." "I might." "I know." The cabin climbed. Tower 6 appeared through the snow, a black steel skeleton bending over Ravine's divide. The manual brake platform was positioned outside the support structure. Rachel secured her harness. Matteo caught the strap. "I go first. You have one functional shoulder. I have two functional legs. One is braced." Details. Despite everything, Rachel felt the edge of a smile. It vanished when the tower shifted. The occupied cabins were less than 4 minutes away. Rachel opened the hatch. Wind flooded the compartment. Matteo clipped himself to the exterior line and stepped onto the tower. Rachel followed. They climbed together through ice and violent wind. Matteo remained half a step below her, positioned to catch her if she slipped. She noticed. "You do not always have to stand between me and the fall." Yes, that was not a question. It was not an answer you will like. They reached the brake platform. The manual wheel was frozen. Rachel struck the ice with the rescue hammer. Nothing moved. The approaching cable cars emerged from the storm. Faces appeared behind the glass. Employees, security officers, gala staff. People who had nothing to do with Matteo's war. Rachel gripped the wheel. "Help me." Matteo placed both hands beside hers. Pain crossed his face. Together, they forced the wheel. It moved 1 inch. Then the tower alarm began to scream. The device attached to Owen had transmitted its final command. The main cable separated from its guide. The line jumped. Rachel lost her footing. Her harness snapped tight, throwing her over the edge of the platform. Matteo caught her wrist. For one impossible moment, the world became the thumbnail of a nightmare. Rachel hung above Ravine's divide. Snow streamed around her red gala dress beneath the torn rescue coat. Matteo lay across the frozen platform, one hand locked around her wrist, while blood ran from his side. The occupied cable cars continued moving toward them. Beside Matteo rested the emergency hydraulic cutter, the same kind he had used inside cabin 14. Rachel saw the calculation in his eyes. If he cut the damaged main line, the counterweight would drop and the brake system might engage. But the severed cable would whip across the tower. It could kill him. "Do it," Rachel said. Matteo's grip tightened. "No. You told me sometimes the damage has to end somewhere. Not with you hanging beneath me. The secondary line will catch the passenger cabins. And this platform? Probably not. No. Matteo, I cut one cable tonight. I will not cut another while your life depends on my hand." Rachel looked up at him. "Then let my life depend on my own." She reached for the climbing hook at her waist. Below the platform ran an old maintenance ladder. If she could swing toward it, Matteo would have both hands free. He understood immediately. "Too far. I can reach. If you miss, I won't. You cannot know that." I tied the rope. The words returned them to the maintenance span. Something moved across Matteo's face. Trust. Terrible, unwilling trust. He adjusted his grip. Rachel swung once. The ladder passed beyond her boots. Again, her shoulder burned. On the third swing, she caught the frozen rung. Matteo released her wrist only after she secured both arms around the ladder. He seized the cutter. Rachel climbed upward from beneath the platform. The occupied cabins were seconds away. "Now!" she shouted. Matteo closed the hydraulic blade. The cable snapped. The recoil struck the tower like lightning. The platform tore loose. Matteo disappeared. Rachel screamed his name. The secondary system caught the occupied cabins. Their brakes engaged in a violent chain of sparks, stopping them before the broken span. But the platform above Rachel was gone. Matteo hung from a single safety line beneath the tower, unconscious over the ravine. Rachel climbed. Every muscle in her body burned. Wind struck her face. Her hands slipped on blood and ice. She reached the broken platform and pulled herself across the steel frame. Matteo's line had begun to tear through the anchor. "Matteo." No response. Rachel wrapped the rescue rope around the tower and lowered herself toward him. His face was pale. She clipped her harness to his. The anchor bolt shifted. "Open your eyes." "Nothing." Rachel slapped his cheek. "Matteo Russo, you do not get to die after making me climb this entire tower." His eyelids moved. "Rachel." Relief nearly broke her. "Yes. You came. You sound surprised." I am learning not to be. The anchor cracked. Rachel secured the rescue rope around both of them. Can you climb? For you? Even half-conscious, he remembered. Rachel's eyes burned. Yes, for me. Matteo reached for the ladder. Together, they climbed out of the ravine. When rescue teams reached Tower 6, they found Rachel lying across the frozen platform with Matteo's head against her chest. His hand remained closed around hers. He did not release it when cameras arrived. He did not release it when federal officers carried Elias Voss through the snow below. He did not release it when the world saw, for the first time, that Matteo Russo had something to lose. Chapter 11. The Man Outside the Door. Matteo spent 6 days in a private hospital outside Denver. Rachel visited once. Only once. He was awake when she entered. No guard stopped her. No assistant announced her. Sophia had apparently instructed the entire floor that Rachel Hayes required no permission. Matteo sat beside the window in a black shirt, his ribs bandaged beneath it. Snow moved across the city beyond the glass. You waited 3 days, he said. I had statements to give. You could have given them here. I needed space. The words struck him, though his expression barely changed. He gestured toward the chair. Rachel remained standing. Elias Voss had survived. Agent Claire had placed him in federal custody, alongside several compromised officers. Owen's wife and daughter had been recovered from Victor Armano's warehouse. Owen faced charges, but his cooperation would protect his family. The continuity archive had been secured. Hundreds of witnesses were being relocated. Blackridge remained closed. Everything had changed. Yet the question between Rachel and Matteo had not. You ordered people to watch me again, she said. His gaze shifted. I placed security near the hospital entrance, and outside my temporary apartment. Cade's network is not fully dismantled. You promised to ask. I promised to protect Owen's family. Do not hide behind exact wording. Matteo looked toward the window. I do not know how to do this. Rachel had expected denial, not honesty. He continued. When someone threatens what belongs to my organization, I remove the threat. When someone threatens you, I cannot think clearly enough to determine where protection ends. I do not belong to your organization. I know. Do you? Yes. He looked at her. That is the problem. Rachel approached the bed. What do you want from me? Matteo's face became still. Everything. The answer should have been too much. It was too much. But it was also true. My time, she said. My trust. My body. My life. Yes. And what would you give? Everything I control. That is not what I asked. His brow tightened. Rachel placed her hand over his. What would you give that costs you? Matteo understood. Control. The word sounded painful. Rachel sat beside him. I cannot love a man who turns fear into a locked door. His fingers closed around hers. And if I learn to open it? Then I decide whether to walk through. Matteo brought her hand to his mouth. He kissed her knuckles once. Not possession. A promise he did not yet know how to keep. Rachel leaned forward. Their first kiss was quiet. No violence interrupted it. No alarms sounded. No enemy appeared. Matteo touched her face as if he still expected her to disappear. Rachel felt his restraint in every measured movement, in the way he waited when she breathed against his mouth, in the way his hand stopped at her waist until she moved closer. The kiss deepened. Danger remained part of him. It always would. But for the first time, danger listened. When Rachel pulled away, Matteo's forehead rested against hers. I am not staying tonight, she whispered. His hand tightened once before relaxing. I know. You hate that. Yes. But you will let me leave. No. Rachel raised an eyebrow. Matteo corrected himself. I will not stop you. That is a beginning. She stood. At the door, she looked back. The most feared man in the city sat alone beside the window, watching her leave without ordering anyone to follow. It cost him. Rachel could see that. 3 weeks later, the national scandal around Blackridge reached its peak. News networks revealed that Elias Voss had bribed officials, compromised witness protection, and financed attacks through resort emergency funds. Matteo's name appeared in every report, but no charges connected him to the sabotage. He could have vanished. Instead, he attended a public hearing in Denver. Rachel sat before a government committee beneath white lights and cameras. She testified about the cable system, the archive, and the corruption that had placed hundreds of witnesses in danger. A senator attempted to suggest she had been manipulated by Matteo. Rachel leaned toward the microphone. Matteo Russo has tried to control many things in his life. My testimony is not one of them. The room stirred. The senator smiled thinly. Yet he is present today. Rachel looked toward the rear doors. Matteo stood alone in a dark suit. No visible guards. No private entrance. He had come because she invited him. He is here, Rachel said, because I asked him to listen. The senator turned toward Matteo. Mr. Russo, do you consider Miss Hayes part of your organization? Every camera found him. Matteo's answer would travel across the country. He looked only at Rachel. No. The senator appeared surprised. What is she to you? The room became silent. Matteo's jaw tightened. Rachel saw the instinct to protect the truth by hiding it. Then he chose differently. She is the woman whose judgment I trust more than my own. The hearing chamber froze. Powerful men stared. Reporters stopped typing. Rachel felt the words settle somewhere permanent inside her. Matteo continued. She does not belong to me. I am trying to become someone she may choose. It was not a proposal. It was more vulnerable than one. Outside the courthouse, snow began to fall. Matteo did not approach Rachel until she stepped toward him first. Chapter 12. The Restored Line. 4 months later, Blackridge reopened its northern cable system. The resort had new ownership, independent safety oversight, and a memorial plaque for the 2 employees killed during the attack. Rachel returned as Director of Mountain Emergency Operations. She accepted the position under one condition. No private owner, criminal organization, or government agency could override rescue protocols without her written authorization. No one argued. The new control center overlooked Ravine's divide through reinforced glass. Modern digital systems lined the walls, but Rachel had insisted on keeping the old analog levers. Machines could be corrupted. A human conscience had to remain somewhere in the system. On opening night, snow fell softly over the mountain. Rachel stood alone inside the control room wearing a deep red dress beneath a black winter coat. The final cabin crossed the restored line safely. Applause rose from the observation deck. She turned toward the glass entrance. Matteo stood outside. He wore a black overcoat, no entourage visible behind him. For the last 4 months, he had kept his distance whenever she requested it. He had asked, before placing security near her home. He had told her when his enemies created risks. He had not hidden the dangerous parts of his life, or pretended they would disappear. He was still feared, still powerful, still capable of violence. But he no longer confused love with permission. Rachel pressed the intercom. The door is unlocked. Matteo looked at the handle. I know. Then why are you standing outside? You said this room belongs to you. It does. He waited. Rachel understood. She crossed the floor and opened the door herself. Matteo entered only after she stepped aside. In his hand was a small velvet box. Rachel looked at it. That had better not be a ring. It is not. He opened the box. Inside lay a polished piece of steel from the hydraulic cutter used on cabin 14. The metal had been shaped into a small mountain pendant. Rachel touched it. You kept this? I kept everything from that night. That sounds dangerously sentimental. I am told I have become inconveniently human. Who told you? Sophia. Repeatedly. Rachel smiled. Matteo's expression changed as it always did when she smiled at him, as though the sight reached a place no one else had permission to enter. He lowered himself onto one knee. Rachel's breath caught. Through the glass wall, resort employees and rescue workers turned toward them. Several of Matteo's men stood on the distant observation deck, visibly stunned. Rachel looked down at him. What are you doing? Something I once believed powerful men should never do. He held the pendant in his open palm. I spent most of my life believing control was the only thing standing between order and loss. Then you told me survival without choice was a cage. His voice remained calm, but she saw the vulnerability beneath it. I cannot promise that the world around me will become safe. I cannot promise I will stop being feared. I cannot promise there will never be another enemy. Rachel's eyes burned. What can you promise? That I will never call protection love when it takes away your voice. The control room became completely silent. Matteo continued. I will ask before I enter. I will listen when you tell me no. I will tell you the truth even when it risks losing you. His fingers closed slightly around the pendant. And when fear makes me forget the man I am trying to become, I will remember the woman strong enough to command my conscience. Rachel looked through the glass. Snow moved beyond the windows. The restored cable cars traveled above Ravine's divide, their warm lights crossing the darkness one by one. 4 months earlier, Matteo had cut himself loose because he believed the only way to protect her was to fall alone. Now he knelt because he had learned something harder, to remain beside her without claiming the right. Rachel touched his face. Stand up. For a second, uncertainty entered his eyes. Then she smiled. I am not rejecting you, Matteo Russo. Rachel placed the pendant around her neck. The steel rested above her heart. What happens now? He asked. The question was almost unfamiliar coming from him. Rachel took his hand and led him toward the main console. Now you stay until the last cabin comes home. His fingers threaded through hers. And after? She looked at the empty mountain road below, where no convoy waited to control her departure. Matteo had come alone because she asked him to. After, she said, you take me to dinner. Where? Somewhere without armed guards. That may be difficult. Matteo. One table, 2 discreet guards outside. No. 1 driver. Ask properly. He looked at her with solemn intensity. Rachel Hayes, will you allow 1 professionally trained driver to remain within a reasonable distance while I take you to dinner? She pretended to consider it. Yes. Relief moved through him so subtly that no one else would have noticed. Rachel did. She rose onto her toes and kissed him. Matteo's arms came around her carefully, then completely. Warmth surrounded her. Power yielded without disappearing. When the kiss deepened, he held her as though she were not fragile, not helpless, not something he had rescued. He held her as an equal who had chosen to remain. Outside, the final cable car approached the station. Its lights crossed the ravine where everything between them had begun with a falling cabin. An impossible decision. And a man who believed sacrifice was the only language love could speak. The cabin entered safely. Rachel closed the northern line. Matteo waited beside her. Together, they watched the storm move beyond the mountain, no longer trapped inside it, and no longer pretending darkness could be erased. It could only be crossed, one chosen step at a time.